Om. Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna. Arjuna is the calf, and people of purified intellect are the drinkers. The milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat. So, we're having this discussion about renunciation. What is renunciation? What is to be renounced? And we realize what's to be renounced is a false idea that we've been holding on to. Really. It's a false idea that I'm the doer. And the prescription being given is to still do, because you are the ego sense, and even the mind wrapped up in ego still has a role, which is the agent of action. You can instigate. So the doing itself, not done by anything limited. Doing itself, universal, God's will. But the instigation, my will. And so this takes us into this great dialogue, discussion, discovery of then what is best to use my will for. And the ruler is always going to be the rule of thumb, the way to measure the compass. You could say a lot of different ways, but one word is good: peace. One word is good: peace. And that is, are you at peace? Do you have peace in the heart? Do you have equanimity of mind? That's really the only way to measure anything. And what we want is peace. So we want to be loved, we want to be happy, all of this. But also all of these we come to see are in the realm of peace. So when we are in an undisturbed place, able to be present, then happiness is here. Yes. So that's the way we can see it from the inside. There was some discussion over the last couple of days about spiritual progress and such. And of course, this is really ultimately the best way to see. Are we more at peace? Less anger, less judgmental tendency like this. Are we more at peace? Okay, so we'll pick up here, having discussed, and Lord Krishna hasn't given up on the teaching about renunciation yet, but he's also stated it very clearly. We're to do our duty. Our duty is that which is in front of us, which we are capable for. We're to do it in a spirit of equanimity, do our best with it genuinely, as if we were personally passionate about it, but offering the fruit, not interested in the fruit. So that's the guidance. And then he's been discussing who is really doing, and there are these 5 factors that we've discussed over the last couple of days, which include the body, which is the seat of action, right? Ego sense, which is the agent, as it were, instigator, and then the organs of action and the sense organs, which are considered together, and then the functions of the body, and then the presiding deity over those functions, such as the motherhood deity, which helps us to touch it, helps us to relate. Okay. Now, what is it that's instigating the action is where we are now. What is inciting to action? This is number 18. And we had read it. We talked a little bit about it day before yesterday. So we come back to this. There are 3 incitements to action. So what motivates the action? Why do I act, as it were? 3 incitements to action. First, knowledge. Second, what is to be known. And third is the knower. There are 3 components of an action. So first, there are 3 incitements. What is it that instigates or incites? Knowledge, so you know something, or you wish to know something. And so there is the thing itself, there is the knowledge of the thing, and there is the knower. Okay. So look at it and see. You meet someone. I want to know you better. So you see that motivates to action, that incites to action? And then look at the thoughts and the words and the actions, etc., that come from that. Yes? So you can see how that incites. Okay. Now, if you look, you'll see that really certainly all ego-centered, which is most of the action, certainly all ego-centered action is like this. You want to know something. Is it so? You want to go somewhere. In order why? To experience it. What does experience it mean? To know it. Isn't it so? Yeah. You want to go to a mountaintop. Why? To get to know it. Yes? So, does that resonate? So that's nothing wrong. No judgment, nothing wrong. Just looking at understanding what Krishna is sharing with us here. And then there are 3 components of an action. The means, so how it is that the action happens. So the body part that performs the action is the way Swamiji explains it here. The means. So I want to know this cup of tea. And so the means is the hand, and then, of course, the tongue and mouth and all of this, right? Okay, now I know thee.
I don't see how the knowledge part is like a main thing, because normally you know something and then you experience it, but then...
No, you don't know it. That's why you experience it. If you knew it, there would be no desire to experience it.
But there is the seeking for pleasure, then you want to repeat the experience many times, right?
Yeah, you want to know it better. It's not in the traditional way you would think of knowing. You're relating to knowing as something intellectual. But you don't know it intellectually. You only have an idea about it. If you want to know it, you're going to have to experience it. So you have an idea about meditation. Do you know it? When you have an idea about meditation?
You know part of it.
No. Before you start to meditate.
Oh, you don't know how it's going to go. Yeah.
You don't know it.
No. You know the path.
No, you don't know it. You know something about a practice to experience it. Mm-hmm. Yes? But now you want to know it. Experiencing is knowing.
Right.
Okay.
But once you experience it once, then...
Then you could renounce it.
Mm-hmm.
If you know it well, you could renounce it. But habitually, the action continues to be performed. Yeah? But also, and just stick with Krishna on this, because 3 types of knowledge are discussed as well, and it's important to recognize those as it relates back to this. Okay? So if you're not completely there, just go with it for a minute. Okay. And then we can check back in. Okay? So there are 3 components of an action, or 3 parts of an action. The body part that performs the action, the doing of the action, and the agent of the action. So the doing itself consists of the body part, the action itself, and the motivation for it, which is the individual, the agent. Okay. So we read some of the commentary already. We're going to pick it up here. Swamiji says, a movie theater is a beautiful analogy. So here, we'll start here. So I'm just going to read this commentary. Let's be present for it. It's he takes us through something here and see if we can catch what he's taking us through. The seed of all that has manifested is in this Trinity, the knowledge, the knowable, and the knower. Unfortunately, we don't usually see these separately. For example, I as the seer, you as the seen, and my seeing you as the action. So seer, seen, and seeing. These three, the subject, the object, and the interaction between them, always come up together. We don't usually distinguish one aspect from the next. If we could separate them, we would always see. I am the subject, and what I see becomes the object. It becomes the object because I see it so. An awareness of this will create a new outlook on the world. The object becomes a particular object because we see it so. I can see this person as a woman. I can see this person as just a human being. I can see this person as a brilliant, intelligent person. I can see this person as Holy Spirit. I can see this person as tall, thin, fat, white, or black. All are one and the same person, but is she all of that, or none of that, or some of that? And it depends only upon how we see. That means that the entire visible world, as you know it, is nothing but your projection, how you see it. The world is the seer's creation. You see it, so it is so. But if you can see it differently, it will be different. An atom, for example, can be seen as a particle or a wave. It depends only upon the viewer. So we mentioned he brings a little quantum physics in even. The difference lies in your seeing. That's probably the reason why the same person is a wonderful, loving friend to one person, but to another seems quite terrible. How can she be both devil and angel? It's your subjective projection. A movie theater is a beautiful analogy because it has three main things. First is the silver screen, which is completely blank. Second, at the other end of the theater, just a brilliant light inside the projector. The theater needs a blank screen and a brilliant clear light, and in between, the roll of film. In all movie theaters, wherever you go, the screen is the same, the light is the same, they're constant, but they present different shows by changing the rolls of film, and they show it in a dark place. The darkness is ignorance. In our lives, we may also see such filmmaking. The pure self inside is the clear light, the projector's bulb, the illumination. The world outside is just a blank screen. But in that world, you see many dramas, many things, heroes, heroines, villains, and all the different roles. Where do they come from? They come from the roll of film built into your projector. And that roll of film is your mind. When you got it originally, that roll of film didn't have anything on it. It came to you blank with unexposed or unspoiled film. Even before you bought the film, how was it made? When I was younger, they would use pure mica sheets. Then they would coat that plain glass-like sheet with some chemicals, such as silver nitrate and other things. The composition varied. According to the different chemical compositions, the sensitivity of the film increased or decreased. The moment the pure, thin plastic sheet is coated with sensitive chemical composition, it becomes a sensitive film. That sensitivity is measured in ASA. It is a coincidence, he says, is it a coincidence that asa in Sanskrit means desire? Until that coating of sensitivity, the film was innocent, crystal clear, and pure. And the moment it becomes sensitive to light, it must stay in the dark or it will become exposed. That is why unexposed film is put on rolls and then in cans in the darkness. From then on, it's kept in the dark until it's exposed. Even after exposure, it's developed in a dark room and later projected in a dark room. It's all dark room business. And he says our minds are like that. Originally, the mind was crystal clear, like a pure mica sheet, completely innocent. No desire there at all. But somehow the mind became coated with sensitivity. We sometimes say, beware of that fellow, he's so sensitive. Which means egoistic. Did you catch that? Which means egoistic. Because you might say something and he could go off. He's very sensitive. Be careful. That beautifully untouched film becomes coated with a little ego chemical. How sensitive to light the mind becomes depends upon the thickness of the ego. Some minds even hate the light. They want to be in darkness, and they're happy in their ignorance. But we don't just stay there. We want to take pictures. This is this process it's talking about. We want to take pictures. We want experiences. We want to know.
Like a tourist.
Yeah, there you go. See? Okay. Oh, it said we'd get there. And we have a highly refined camera with a double lens for 3 dimensions, our eyes. We even have a camera with a built-in automatically opening aperture, the iris. Our lens is also exceptional, wide angle, normal, or telephoto. It can become anything because God created this camera. It's different, doesn't need any adjustments, not even a battery. There's a shutter too. Where's the shutter? Open that shutter and immediately the images pass through. And where do those images go? Straight onto the egoistic film of the mind, at which point you carefully take it home and develop it. How do you develop it? You stew on it.
Yes.
So you develop it, at which point it becomes? Sorry? Yeah, our individual conditioning. So it becomes the reactive nature after we stew on it, after we develop it. So where do these images go? Straight to the egoistic film. First you see it. What a pretty thing. You just took a picture of it. You go home thinking, how can I get it? It's only $150. I have $100 in the bank. Well, I can borrow another $50 from a friend. Now you're developing the picture. Once you decide to buy it, you've fixed it. That's the developing bath and fixing bath in the dark room of ignorance. Thinking, yes, by getting this, I'll be happy is the ignorance. Once you fix it, you print it and project it. So whatever is printed and fixed becomes your roll of film. You have millions of photographs on that roll, which keeps revolving. The clear light of your pure self is inside giving off light. Without that light, the mind can't do anything. Because it is in the presence of that light, it projects onto the clear screen. And that's why what you see is nothing but your projection. If you erase all the images, if you take the roll of film away, you will see only a pure world. Renunciation. Actually, there's nothing to distinguish you as separate from the world if you see with no film. So that is why we say that if in the early stages you still want to take pictures, take nice pictures. So now he's talking about sadhana. Take sattvic pictures. Yes? Does that resonate? Take nice pictures. Don't take those other kinds of pictures anymore, because those really disturb you when you have to look at them again once you've developed them. Listen to the Chinese monkeys. Hear no evil on your tape recorder. See no evil with your camera. You have a tape recorder, a camera, and a playback machine. You have everything. If you still want to use your camera, then use it. But speak no evil, hear no evil, see no evil. Then the world outside will seem better to you. Most enmities are created by speaking. If you're silent, you will avoid many quarrels. That's why the proverb, silence is golden. People who properly observe silence are always happy. They don't expose their foolishness. It saves you and others too. Everything is recorded on this magnetized audio-visual tape with playback. Everything that we do should keep the film clean. The Bible says, blessed are the pure in heart, they shall see God. They're nothing but God, because the film roll in the heart has been purified. God shines through, and all they see is light everywhere. To see God everywhere, let God shine through your crystal clear mind. Until then, saying, everything is God, is just theory, not real experience. These shlokas are talking about the basic three-part principle: the seer, the seen, and seeing, or the knower, knowable, and knowledge. On the outside are the indriyas, or the senses, which are twofold: the inner subtle senses that bring in all the ideas, and then the active senses that turn the ideas into action. Sense organs, organs of action. First you get the idea, and then you put it into action. That's why we ask, where did you get that idea? The idea comes before the action. Even to get an idea, there's an I, an ego. First comes thought, the idea, then speech and doing, which is action. Speaking is also action, but thought is the basis. Okay, this is a good commentary, yes? Maybe it'll help us some with the clarity on what's happening in here. So Sanskrit terms like samskara, which are the photos, samskara, and vasanas, which are the tendencies that are arising when it's developed, when the film is developed. And now we have our action plan. Yes? Now we have our action plan. I'm going to get this, I'm going to stay away from that. But really, blank screen, light. And then our own individual developing room. So now, to come out of it, this is where Lord Krishna goes now, to come out of this space. He says there are three types of knowledge, actions, and agents. I'll describe each for you according to the predominant guna as presented in the science of Samkhya Yoga. There is one eternal reality that pervades everything and everyone. This is 20. In the midst of the many, it is the invisible, indivisible oneness. In the midst of the many, it is the indivisible oneness, the unity that cannot be divided or parsed. It can only appear to be, and it can only appear to be in the company of the ego sense. But everywhere we look is the one. We just peel the surface. Swami Premanandaji Maharaj used to say, the world is like a banana. You have to peel it to enjoy it. So it's these ideas, these notions that we're carrying around that have shapes and names and all of this. So there's one eternal reality pervades everything and everyone. In the midst of the many, it is the indivisible oneness. In all so-called separate beings, it is never separated or divided, and perception of this reality is pure or sattvic knowledge. And pure or sattvic knowledge opens the door. So this is what we're wanting to cultivate, is this pure or sattvic knowledge. Swamiji says, sattvic knowing means the mind has become more tranquil. Only when this happens, you will perceive the essence in everything. Until this time, you'll still perceive the object, which is, again, your own film, and the preferred relationship with the object, which is the tendency that's been developed as a result of this. So, and he says, whenever the mind is not sattvic, so when it is sattvic, when the mind is pure, when the mind is equanimous, this is when you experience everything that you've sought. And everyone has moments of this. You recognize that if you look at your experiences, and we look at this very early on in yoga, when we first start coming to yoga, the principles of yoga, if you consider when you've been happy, any time you've been happy, and if you look at the mental state, you'll always see balanced mind, equanimous mind, absorbed mind, as if the mind wasn't there. Like you were saying, when I've gotten myself out of the way, this motherhood intuitive flow, but this ego can put something in the way of it. Yes? And when something's in the way of it, there's not the feeling of fullness. But when nothing's in the way of it, there's the absence of the feeling of separation. Right? So we all have the experience with it. But again, when the mind is in this sattvic place, then we have the experience of it. But when it comes out of that place into any passion or into dullness, then we no longer have the experience of it. Right? And if we're able to see, we see, something just got in the way, and we learn to recognize what got in the way, and we replace it. We stand back from it. All of these practices, we step back from it. We come back to the breath. We chant our mantra. Right? You're starting to get in the way. No, my dear, you're not getting in the way. What I said the other day, the word waterfall starts to come. Stop! Back to peace. So, whenever the mind is not sattvic, that is tranquil, peaceful, and balanced, it's impossible to see the essence behind everything. That's why rajas and tamas should be overcome. So, and you might think you're there because generally you'll have an experience of the oneness, but then something that was developed in this factory long ago arises, some passionate feeling towards something which again has been created here. And then as soon as that's there, and as soon as we've missed its formation and not recognized that we're losing ourselves in that moment, and we give into it, and now we have the story, and even a new story, new images, new story. So this is why Peace Pilgrim says, if you knew the power of your thoughts, you would never think a negative thought again. You wouldn't allow yourself to do it. You wouldn't allow it to get developed. If you really saw it, and if you saw the way that it carries you away, and say, no, I love, I just stop there. Yeah. So, and this is what happens when we submit ourselves to the yoga path. We'll stop here this morning here very shortly, but we do begin to see. When we begin to see, we might feel like we're not making progress, because when we begin to see, we see so much stuff. But that's not the time to get discouraged. When you begin to see no discouragement, now you have, okay, this is what I really need to focus on. Not all of this doing for me anymore, but let's clean house here. So that's why rajas and tamas should not be overcome. You literally destroy the rajasic and tamasic qualities and construct sattva. This is what we're involved in sadhana, in intentional spiritual life. Then at a certain level, even sattva should be transcended. That'll happen later. Right now, just change tamas to rajas and rajas to sattva. Don't even hurry to reach the sattvic state of tranquility. Just get rid of tamas, the dull, sleepy, always take it easy attitude. Don't fall into that. Get up, get dressed, ready to go. Overcome tamas with rajas. And then he speaks of Swami Vivekananda. He says, I admire the great Swami Vivekananda. He was the foremost disciple of Saint Ramakrishna and himself an inspirational sage who was among the very first to bring Eastern wisdom to North America. He used to say, forget about all your philosophy, all your scripture studies, all your temples. Close everything and go to the field, play some football and volleyball. You so-called religious people, in the name of scripture, temple, and dogma, you're dull-headed and sleeping. You need rajas now. Don't mistake tamas to be sattvic. And Swamiji says, I think that sounds like a good idea. We shouldn't fool ourselves into thinking we're all sattvic. Well, really, we're just sleeping. It's better to get up, go into the field, do some digging, drive a bulldozer, cut some trees, clear some land. Then you'll feel active, warmed up. So let's build up a little rajas. I'm for action. I don't even like sitting and talking. I prefer to be somewhere in the fields doing some work. When you're moderately rajasic, then you're ready to experience sattva. It's a healthy perspective that he shares also. When we start to think that we know, and then practice detachment. This detachment is so tricky. In the ego mind factory, the idea of detachment is so tricky, Hari. It's so tricky. Because we keep hearing from the ego-tainted mind, don't do. And then because we don't do, we feel less disturbance. But that all of those triggers for disturbance are still in the subconscious. You're just hiding from them. And so the only way out is you have to see them and transcend them. So although the meditation practice helps greatly, still we have to balance it, And that's what. So the one who actually has the real capacity to get up and do and to continue to present themselves to do, and also who can do selflessly, can really put the vigor into doing not for themselves, has made great progress in the path. Great progress in the path, because that capacity really opens the door. You have to have something to offer at the end of the day. And so the doing, what we're doing, when we're caught up in this state of doership, we're not being told by the scriptures, stop doing. Once again, we're not being told, stop doing. We're only being told, okay, keep doing, just offer it. Keep doing, do what's right, do what's beneficial, raise Tao, get up in the mornings early, be with him, be present with him, do everything that you possibly can, make it an offering. Like this. This is it. And this is the way. Yoga is not lived in it's there's an idea, especially with householder role, when we come to yoga, it's like I'm supposed to leave my family and go into a cave. No. Because your family is your path. That's your way out of the madness. And so it's grace. In that way, it's grace. It's very tough being cloistered. and doing it. Because the tendency is there, this pleasure-seeking tendency is so strong. It's so strong. When you look, you see in the world, we want to avoid the painful thing. And that's one of our great struggles, is to do what's right, even though it's painful, even though we might die for doing it. And then the fear of death and all of that will arise. But really, that's an opportunity, of course. And we come to ashram, and the tendency will be to avoid pain here. Well, everything we do at ashram is painful. It is so painful to face yourself and to have to recognize that you're the cause of your own suffering. And then to have to get up early, which you don't want to do, and to listen to people tell you different things that you don't like to hear. You don't want to hear them. You don't want to hear any more about the things someone said you did a year ago. You don't want to hear about it anymore. So you figure you can go to a place where you don't have to hear about it anymore. But in ashram, you have to hear about it. Over and over again. And you have to yourself see it and recognize it. And you have to recognize that the cause of the discomfort isn't because of what you're exposing yourself to, because what you're exposing yourself to is perfectly pure. The only issue that you're exposing yourself to is your own film factory. And so when we close the doors, now we say, okay, I want to be here in peace and quiet. But that won't let us progress.
Yeah, just like
Ashram's very interesting in that way. It's very interesting. It's very interesting dharma. Okay. So, questions or comments? Anything on the yes, dear?
I was thinking, when you start forming that thought, you start that thought formation, that's a process toward creating that rut or samsara or something.
Yes.
From the very beginning, as it starts repeating and looping for you, like it's like karma, like it's like instant karma, and then it just
oh yeah, and karma is both action and reaction. So the fact that you repeat it once is action, and it's related to the experiencing it to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But every time you repeat it in the mind, it becomes stronger. It's cutting a deeper groove, and the mind takes on that nature more and more. The mind, which was pure at some point, takes on that nature more and more. So when we say dirty mind, it's not judgmental. It's just, this is how the dirt is coming into the mind, is that we're meditating upon it. We're developing it, as Swamiji had said in that example.
And in Tao too, he's going to be learning right now, and
Yeah.
starting to repeat and form the same ruts we have.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
reflecting back to us.
Yes. And he's a perfect reflection in that way, and he will help you see it so quickly. And that will get annoying too. But to your capacity, this is why Rajas is so important, the ability to get up and keep presenting yourself and like that. To your ability to see it, you can catch it quickly and say, I know where that came from. I need to change that here. Yeah. And then in terms of the pictures that he's developing, as sattvic as it can be, the fact that he's been in nature his first year is so helpful in this way. So nature, generally speaking, natural nature has a predominance of sattva, and predominance of clarity. So that's why nature can be a great healer for us too. When we're all caught up, is to take ourselves out and walk through the arboretum, the forest, do gardening like this.
If I could share for a moment, we had actually read in the Anastasia and the Rainbow Cedars series.
Yes. I'm aware of it. I only read a little. Beautiful.
Yes, she's all about nature, and she lives
Yes.
in the wild without any fire or anything. And
Yes.
she's a great sage. She said it's the most important thing in the world is like child raising to her, it seems.
Yes.
And she recommends raising your child in nature is, I guess, as much as is possible in this world, because they learn the natural order of the universe.
Yes.
Like how we watch that Ramdas video and we see all the repeating patterns and all sorts of things in nature.
Yes.
They can figure out the entire natural order without all the confusing like toys kind of like break that up and they don't make sense.
Yes. 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 It's a funny thing. I'm learning that for children, when you have the choice, ashram is not necessarily the place you would raise them in, although you would bring them, you would come from time to time and you'd come regularly. And then the surroundings, as much as your dharma allows, sometimes your dharma will take you into the city. But if your dharma allows you to be in nature, then that's ideal. Peace Pilgrim used to talk about her own circumstances when she was young. She said, I had room to grow. So I've seen the house that she grew up in, and it was, there's a stream that runs through the area and plenty of room to play and like this. And so if the Dharma allows, I'm just saying sometimes our duty places us in situations that don't. But when it allows, then that's ideal. And then you come to ashram now and then like this and put up with it and see what you can get out of it.
Refine my own idea.
We can say that life force is divine. And we could also say that it is divinity. And you can even personalize it and relate to it. So, yeah. Okay. Final prayers in RT. Short version. Page 174. Om Chayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Chayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Chayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. On below Sakuru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and for all the saints and sages of all the traditions. Okay, let's rise for Arati.